Hello everyone! Today we'll be talking about the Bright Banner. So, after waiting all this time, this is what we got. Louise will be in a separate video, possibly tonight. It really depends on how I feel. We'll see then. The Secret Seal video cannot be made until the 25th. I just thought I'd point that out because I don't know what type of seal is renewal. It's probably going to be colorless, but I'd rather wait and be sure. Attack speed, brazen attack speed is, I believe, either red or blue. And speed rest 2 is either blue or colorless, so I don't fucking know. I have absolutely no idea which is which, so I'm going to just wait. So, yeah. Let's talk about unit. As per usual, I'm going from worst to best, and well, let's go. Starting with Pent. Pent is a decent unit in an oversaturated pool of unit, is the problem. He's a decent unit, and overall his weapon is probably one of the best of the banner, despite it all being basically the same outside of Fjorm. Because, guess what? Tome units are very limited. They don't have cooldown -1 to contend with. They have Blade Tome, which obviously Pent is probably one of the better user of it. Ivaldi is actually just a worse vessel of cheer, honestly. And yeah, so unless you have Dire Thunder or Blade Tome, you don't have many options. Sometimes you can use Owl Tome to some extent, but on horses, not really. So you can probably make characters like La Rochelle use this weapon decently. Pull Smoke is also a fantastic skill. Do note that no healers can use it, as is tradition with smoke skills. I kind of wanted to try something with it, but oh well, I can't. So overall, it's decent fodder. The unit itself has too much competition, as is usually the case with seasonal units that don't have prefs. So here's the competition. In case you don't notice, La Rochelle with Speed Plus has the same offensive capability as Pent, which is the main reason you would be using him. That said, Pent does have better bulk overall to take hits and hit desperation easier, while La Rochelle has a whooping 50 bulk, though with Fury and Fortify Cav you can actually make that up to 59, which tends to be decent. If you were planning on merging Pent, I would strongly discourage it, because at the end of the day, La Rochelle just is easier, considering she's a 3-star unit, and not to mention cheaper. So yeah, and if you have both of them at +10, I'm gonna be honest here and say that, well, Pent and La Rochelle do basically the very same thing, except you could actually make the case that La Rochelle can ploy while Pent can't. So at high merges, I'd easily say La Rochelle is better. Pent is really reliant on IVs to be even comparable to La Rochelle at that point. And on low merges, unless you get Speed Plus, and to some extent Attack Plus, you are always going to be just barely better than La Rochelle with Speed Plus. And the second you add merges, that just goes off the window. Spring Katria is obviously the better alternative also when it comes down to offense. 32-35 is really hard to beat. And if you have one with decent IVs like Attack or Speed Plus, Pent is just not even worth pulling for, because at that point you just have a better unit. Not to mention, Spring Katria has a decent pref. That pref when it was released used to be very bad, mind you, but with the advent of characters such as, well, Rid, who are very reliant on having your enemy debuffed, this Tome becomes a lot better, especially since both of them are horse units, so you can just buff up Rid, so Heavy Blade is more consistent, and with the weapon debuff, so you can actually have a target to smash, then everything around that target loses 7 attack and just cannot double Rid anymore. You get the idea. It's frankly amazing. The problem is just, well, yeah, seasonal. But all that to say that unlike Pent, well, Katria has more options, and that's why I consider her to be much better. So as for builds, well, Blade Tome Desperation Fury. There's no point in me like showcasing a build for him. At the end of the day, it's always the fucking same with Mage Calves with a good attack and speed. It's all Blade Tome Fury Desperation. And then you can go really up the beaten path and do something completely different. That will probably do worse. Moving on to Sigrun. First off, I have no idea what kind of cake she's going to cut with that sword, but Jesus Christ, that sounds huge. Second, ARD. If you're pulling for this, you're stupid. Now, for air orders, that's a fantastic C skill, and if you think it's good enough for you, go ahead, it's a fantastic skill. It basically just slaps flyer formation on a full team of flyers, so, you know. And more than that, because that also gives them aerobatics and so on, you get the idea. Sigrun herself isn't bad if it wasn't for the fact that she's just completely overshadowed. Nothing about her is really all that new either. Swift Sparrow weapon, great, but cooldown -1 tends to be a lot more consistent. And you're going to hear me say that a lot, because Tenef also has the same problem. The only reason why Pen doesn't have that problem is cooldown -1 weapon don't exist for Mage. Unless they're Prefs, and Prefs, well, are not inheritable, so that's a dead point. So, moving on, let's move to comparison. This is what I mean by there's a huge comparison. Or a huge competition would be a better word. Guntra has 3 more attacks, so it's basically an attack plus Sigrun, but also has 3 more HP, so it's a lot easier to maneuver into Desperation and other such skills. And same defense, and the only thing that Sigrun really has going for her is res. Yeah. So, I guess it's basically an attack plus res... an attack minus res plus Guntra. The thing is, New Year Guntra's stat line is a lot more flexible, and that's one of the reasons I plan on plus-10ing her down the line. She has a lot of options, and every build that Sigrun can run, Guntra can typically do better. Not to mention she has Ikami, which is unique to her, which also gives her an edge compared to Sigrun because it gives her more options yet again. The attack is also fairly important because if you're dealing with any tank, even if they're green, such as unit as Surtur, even an unmerged Guntra can actually hold her own against a +10 Surtur. And that attack is very, very, very important. Honestly, it's even lacking at times, especially if death tiles are involved. So, yeah, you can get the idea. It's very rough already for Guntra, so if Sigrun has 3 less attack, man, I don't know what to tell you. It's kind of just... she's kind of just screwed. Also, I see that Game Press yet again fucked up, because look at that HP for the Bane on Sigrun. I doubt we got mini Banes now, but it's just Game Press. Game Press tends to fuck up a lot. Thankfully, people like, well, Zanuck actually do a fantastic job. And as per usual, you can see that that's most of the screenshot I have of the stats. If it wasn't for Zanuck, I would not have good enough quality for those screenshots to even showcase them. Now, what would I say would be the best kit for Sigrun? Well, it's probably the same set I'm running on Guntra, which is Heartblade, Bonfire, Fortress Def Res, Aerobatics, Joint on Speed, and then as the last skill, which is your Seal, Attack Def Bond. Like I said, however, Guntra pulls that set tremendously better because of that extra attack, and the extra res does not really help Sigrun all that much, if I'm being honest. So, yeah. Moving on to Tanith. Tanith is where we'll start to actually get units that are not completely outclassed. Finally. Lofty Blossoms is garbage. As per usual, because cooldown -1 is just better, especially if you combo cooldown -1 with Heavy Blade, and then, you know, run Gale Force, which allows you to run Desperation and still prog Gale Force. If you want to run this over Slaying, you can, but it requires you to switch Desperation to something like Mystic Boost to give you some sustain every fight. It's also inconsistent because if you have to deal with dragons, your res is actually hurting you, and so is your HP. Now, Arch Command is... I mean, I'm glad that to see Arch Command actually buffed up. This is not the way I would have done it personally. I would have just made an AoE Arch Command that would also just, you know, not get rid of, like, preventing counterattacks, restricting movement, all of that. I feel like it's fine to get rid of threatens and panics, because panic at the end of the day is like you remove a debuff, but then it becomes a debuff anyway because of panic, making Arch Commands pretty worthless overall. However, the fact that this also gets rid of restricting movement, of preventing counterattack. Oh no, my Muscat. No, it's not Scatty. It's which one is it? Oh, Imulu. My Imulu got nerfed. Yeah, who cares? It's more important to say that it fucks up Flash to some extent, which I don't know how to feel about that. It's like, oh look, it's finally in the 5-star pool and it's already nerfed despite the fact that it didn't need to be nerfed. This is essentially a better restore, I believe, which is just ridiculous. Hey look, healers that, well, non-healers that are better than healers at getting rid of status element. What? But you get the idea, it's a bit too broken is my issue with it. Chill Attack and Swift Sparrow are just par for the course, they're just nothing new, and honestly, who cares? Swift Sparrow unit number 20, am I right? 45 Flyer is also just basic. Casita already gave that, so... What makes her decent is the fact that she has a good amount of defense. Now, let's move to comparison. So, here's the biggest problem. Yes, she is better than Shigure somewhat, and not in all scenarios, because at the end of the day 4 less res and 3 less HP does end up hurting you even. However, the thing is, Shigure is a 3-star unit, and Tanith is a... how do you say it? A seasonal unit. Do you really think you're going to 5-star plus 10 Tanith? I don't think so. Unless you really, really like her, in which case, more power to you. I mean, at the end of the day, I've always said this, if you really like a character, go for it. It's just what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going to plus 10 like Legendary Ryoma, and I'm gonna also plus 10 New Year Guntra. And hell, their stat line are fairly similar, just one is a bit more defensive than the other. But that's because I like Guntra, so, you know, it's the same kind of scenario here. I don't understand why she's even here though, like, I think she even has a quote where she goes like, why am I even here? In the payload, which just makes me go, why? But the one thing that makes me glad about Tanith and Sigrun is maybe we'll get Guntra and Legiar next year to mirror Fjorm this time around. Who knows? That'd be cool. And I'm sure a lot of people would like that, to be honest. Now, stat-wise, she's better defensively, outside of res, like I said. And, like I said, if you really like her, go ahead. Otherwise, it's not really worth your time. And if you're using her mostly defensively, like enemy phase, Tenna is better and easier to obtain. Has basically the same stat line offensively. Just 1 less HP, I guess, but that's not really offensive. Whatever, you get the point. But Vidofnir also gives 7 def and res, which... yeah. Yeah, and the 4 attack and speed from the weapon... And the fact that the weapon is 16 might... Yeah. Yeah. I do find it funny that if you refine Tanif's weapon to attack, it's basically the, well, not Tanif, rather Sigrun's weapon, and you refine it to attack. It's just Dark Greatsword with 5 extra HP. I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, overall, I would say hard pass. And just build a Shigure if you're going to build her offensively, build a Tana if you're going to build her defensively. Tana is a 5-star exclusive, yes, but she does appear more than once a year, is the difference. Not to mention, she does not always share a spot with Pent, or with 2 more units in a legendary banner when she's gonna come back. That's kind of a huge difference. And with that said, let's go about the best unit of this banner, depressingly enough, which is Fjorm. Now, Fjorm, I have a few good things to say and a few depressing things to say. Obviously, the best thing to say is Gillar Bruh is a pretty good weapon. The problem is it's on a staff unit. Staff units just already have all the toys. What's the point in giving even more toys to them? Like, we already have Veronica, now we have Fjorm, like, what? Would be nice if that came as a ploy instead, because obviously it's going to become a ploy down the line. The problem is that Gillar Bruh is a weapon. It's not inheritable, anything like this. And if a Versus Knight has given us any kind of indication of those really broken weapon becoming skill, it's going to take 8 to 9 months before we get this as a C skill. Or even worse, a B skill. I think you see the problem here. Because at the end of the day, if this is going to become a thing in 8-9 months, that means we are going to have 8-9 months of Legendary Azura comboed into rally units that just rally traps you to hell and back. That we can't actually shut down unless we pull this unit. Better get your fucking money out so you can actually afford one, so you can actually enjoy the game again. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting to me. Just being honest. Just being honest. Because the thing is, this weapon shuts down Dance, it shuts down Sing, it shuts down rallies, so you can't exactly rally trap anymore. For example, the best case scenario I can really show is like, say Azura is in front of you and there's an Ophelia to the left, and you're out of range of that Ophelia, but you put your unit in range of the Azura. Guess what happens? Ophelia has a rally attack up plus, so she's probably going to use that on Azura. Azura is going to dance her because, you know, unless she does 5 damage to the unit you're baiting with, she's going to prioritize dancing over attacking, which means after this, the unit that's been danced has 3 movement and suddenly can attack you, and oh, what's this? You just died. Yeah, this weapon can shut that down. Entirely. Isn't that nice? Right. The problem is, unless you have Fjorm, you don't have this. In a game mode like AR, where you have only 5 spots, losing 1 spot to one specific unit is already terrible enough as is, but the fact that it's a fucking uninheritable weapon is just depressing. Just overall a really, really broken weapon. Really, really strong weapon. But sadly, it's not inheritable is my problem with it. Also, Fjorm, that for some reason the original version was frankly very defensive, build-wise, stat-wise. With an offense that rivaled a fucking wet noodle. Now has 2 alts that have really strong offense and no bulk. That's a bit strange, I'd say. But oh well, I guess that's just favoritism at its finest. Still, overall it's a fantastic unit. Moving to comparison. Oh, and Ground Order is just air orders. That's the best way I can put it. It's the same thing, but it works for everything else. I'll definitely get a copy of that so I can actually buff up my Tiki, so I don't need to have guidance on my Guntra. So Guntra and Tiki can just be a power couple, essentially. But yeah, that's just an example of how strong A skill can be. Moving on to the comparison, the only comparison is fucking Mia, who has 4 less attack and overall less bulk. Now, it's true that her def is better, but the fact that you have more HP allows you to hit Desperation and Brazens a lot easier. That said, Mia with Brazen can hit 29 def and 28 res, with buffs that jumps up to 35 def and 34 res, which is fairly bulky, and then you can actually take hits on enemy phase as well. Whereas the problem with HP is it's great to get in Desperation, but your enemy phase is non-existent afterward. So, okay. Still, I consider her HP a lot better because you can pull off some pretty interesting sets. Now, obviously, the set to the right can be used by Mia as well to more or less the same effect. Like I said, there's 4 less attack, Fjorm is going to be better overall, but Mia's weird bulk can actually help her, especially with skills such as Martyr, so her HP can be high while still be in Brazen range, since it get rid of all of the damage you took. So say you're at lower than 50%, you can jump up to 70% HP while still being Brazen or Desperation, but you actually have an enemy phase then. Moving on to builds, so the set to the right, like I said, can be used by Mia as well. Do note that Speed Plus is better than Attack Plus if you do not merge to plus 10. If you merge to plus 10, your speed is going to be good enough, especially with Brazen Attack Speed, which, by the way, is going to be a seal, so you can just use the seal and then use Brazen Attack Def as your A skill. It's a lot cheaper. I didn't think about that at the time, so there you go. As for the set to the left, I do know that the unit builder, when I worked on it, did not show Sudden Panic as being usable, but it is. Sudden Panic can be used by flyers and infantry unit, regardless of the weapon type you have. They kind of mistook it because Game Press said, by the way, healers can't use Sudden Panic, which they can. I've actually confirmed this with one of my viewers on Twitch, who actually sent me a picture of trying to inherit it to their Loki. So yeah, it can work. So Sudden Panic and Galar Bruh is actually very strong and just basically shuts down a... First off, just completely panics your entire enemy team if they're stuck together. Because let's be honest, 54 HP and less is most units. And Galar Bruh is actually really good to actually shut down dancers on top of it. So you can just use her as a multi-purpose shutting down tool, for lack of a better term. So yeah, overall, fantastic. Does require a Fallen Korin, but oh well. On lower merges, it's definitely a bit less consistent, but you can still just use Summoner Support to push your HP up to 58 at on-merge level if you have HP+. If you do not have HP+, and you do not have plus 10 or merges for that matter, you're going to still have 55 HP, which is still decent. It's a bit more on the cheeky side than this is, especially since this can go up to 62 with, you know, Summoner Support. But it's still fairly decent. And with that said, I believe that completes our round for today. There was really not much to say about those groups of units, just because 3 of them were just doomed to fail to begin with. Honestly, when I saw the banner, I was like, Tanith, Sigrun, and Pent are all fucked. Fjorm has a good chance because our weapon type is fairly non-existent. And yes, Hostile Spring Sakura does exist, but I do consider her stat line to be a bit too different to Fjorm to really matter. Since at the end of the day, the only thing she could really do is the same set as Mia, and that's kinda it. It's kind of irrelevant at the end of the day, so I didn't really showcase it. So yeah, overall, yeah, we've had better. It's still a step up from last year because the characters picked are actually, you know, varied. That was kind of one of my issue with last year. They were varied in all the wrong ways, having a lolly, a psychopath, and then an actual bride. Here, at least, you have an actual groom who has his actual bride as the Tempestral unit. You have Fjorm, the shove down your throat love interest of the game for whatever reason. Seriously, I'm never going to get that part. And well, Sigrun and Tanif are here because Sanaki was here last year. So yeah, I'm just hoping Fjorm is going to make so we're going to get Leigjarn and Guntra next year. Because that would be pretty sick. Or, you know, if they were smart, they would have done Bride Deirdre and Groom Sigurd. I would have actually paid to get them to plus 10, but oh well, I guess not. Instead, we have some weird pick like Fjorm's. Yeah. That's sad. That's honestly quite sad. But, yeah, with all that said, ranting aside, this was a decent banner because it's not as power creepy as the last fucking few banners. Looking at you, Corin. But yeah, hope you had a fun time and actually learned a few things. And as per usual, see you guys later.